Hi, everybody, and welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
And I'm Elsie.
Good to see you, Elsie. How are you doing today?
Good. I just got back from the second-hand shop, actually.
Second-hand shop? What were you doing? Buying second-hand clothes?
No, I was actually donating some clothes.
Oh, you mean you were giving your old clothes to the charity shop.That's a great way to get rid of your old stuff. Someone else can use them and you create less waste.
没错，我在捐我的二手衣服。Do you donate clothes often?
I do, yeah. In Taiwan, we have these green boxes you can see around the neighborhoods, right? So if I've got a t-shirt that I don't want anymore, maybe it's a bit too small or too big or...A little bit too old, but I think, well, maybe somebody could use it. I will go and put it in one of those if I can.
Nice. Okay.
Same for baby clothes. When my son grew out of his and we thought there's no point in keeping some of these around, then you can donate them too.
Yeah, and babies grow really fast.
Tell me about it. He's expensive. How about you?
So, normally I go to that box too and donate my clothes. And one day I found out that I couldn't put my old shoes into the box.
That's right. Shoes and underwear, I think, are two things you can't put in there.
But I didn't know that.
Oh, oops. Oh, well, never mind, because this topic is actually what we're going to be talking about today. We're looking at our picture writing unit, and you'll see from the picture that it's all about donating clothes, a kind of a clothes donation event. So we're going to talk not just about these kind of events, but how you can write about a picture in a way that will create a great composition. So let's start by looking through the topic and the introductions. So as usual with our assignments, you should always check out the instructions first, okay?It says, please look at the following picture. Write a passage of at least 120 words describing the people, events, or objects you see and develop it into a story. Your passage should develop logically and have a proper conclusion.
没错，今天呢，我们看到的提示是请仔细观察下方图片的内容，写出一篇120个字以上的文章来描述图中的人、事物以及可能的发展。那文章呢，需要有合理的发展和完整的结局。
So what we mean here about paying attention to the instructions is that you might just think, okay, all I need to do is describe the picture.No, that's just part of it. You need to turn this into a story. It's not a picture describing writing. It's a narrative passage. A narrative is a story telling the readers about an event or a series of events, and normally these events happened in the past. You can make them past tense when you write them. Narratives could be fictional or non-fictional, so events that didn't happen or the ones that did happen in real life. Harry Potter books, these are narratives and they're fictional. True stories about World War II, for example, they are non-fiction, but you can still write them in the form of a story rather than like a news report. Okay, so let's move on and see how we're going to develop our approach for this writing unit.Develop
and approach 的部分呢，我们要先注意到哦，单图式的看图写作想象的空间比较大，也没有时间顺序的限制，可以将这张图片呢当作起点，写出故事发生的原因，再来写过程或者是结果，也就是结论的部分。那单图式看图写作呢，常见的写作步骤如下：第一个，仔细观察图片的内容，也就是人、事、时地、物都要注意到。再来呢，就是解读图片所要传达的讯息，接着设定整篇故事所要表达的主旨，并且决定这张图片是起承转或是合。
Exactly. So whether we're writing a fiction or a non-fiction narrative, we do need to follow the same kind of storytelling structure. And you've heard this before in our writing units. Your passage needs a beginning and a middle and an end. So when you look at our picture, you don't need to just think, what can I see? But also, what maybe happened before this, or what happened after this. Now, there is a storytelling technique where you start right in the middle of the story and then you kind of, look back a bit, or you have the characters talk about what happened. That's a little tricky. I would not recommend doing this until you've really mastered storytelling, simple structure, beginning, middle, end. Then you can start to play around with it. So let's take a look at the picture in the magazine, and this is very important for developing our approach. We're going to be doing it a lot today. So what can we see in this picture?
Okay, we can see a donation box, and we can see people putting old stuff into the box, like old clothes. Maybe one of them got old books, and I see 2 boys and 1 girl. Wait, are those books? Or just clothes folded?
I think they're just clothes. Yeah, they're folded
okay.
up clothes. It's going to be a clothing drive we're looking at here.
Right.
So this picture could be at any point in the story. We could start the story at a clothing drive and then have something happen after. The story could end with a clothing drive, or it could be in the middle with the main character thinking about or doing stuff before it and after it. So whichever way you choose, all are correct. It's up to you. Do it in whichever way makes your best story. But you do need to think about what happened before, what happens after, and so on. But what else do we need to think about for this approach?
好的，看完图片之后啊，我们来注意哦。根据主旨，我们要运用想象力或是推理来串联情节，说一个呢和图片相关、合理而且生动、精彩的故事。注意，你是要跟图片做连结的，所以不要说一个跟图片完全没有关系的故事。
Exactly. It's very important to be logical with your development of the story. And that's part of the challenge, and that's why you need to plan it out first. You don't want to write a story about how people are donating clothes to charity, and then one of them gets eaten by a bear. It might be really interesting to read and quite fun to write, but it's not logical. The ideas are not connected at all. There's no real kind of logical story. It's just a set of events that make no sense.
没错，那再来呢，我们就要决定结论，以串联情节的发展。结论必须和前面所描述的内容有所呼应，所以不要前面写的是人们捐赠衣服，然后后面的结论写一个完全不相关的，那也不行。
So just as the story development needs to be logical, A leads to B, which leads to C, which leads to D, and they kind of events, these build on each other, your conclusion needs to be logical too. It needs to relate back to the picture. So today we're writing about a clothing donation thing. So we need to think about things like, what are donations? Why do people donate? What things do they donate? And also things like helping others. We're looking for the reasons, the motivations. Maybe you could have your character learn something from this story. That's usually a pretty good conclusion.
好，那再来呢？看图写作啊，它是一种叙述的文章，着重在描述图片的内容，也就是我们刚刚提到的人、事、实地、物。那你可以观察图中人物的表情、服装、动作，生动的细节呢，可以让这个文章更精彩。还有就是意想不到的结果、结论，也可以抓住读者的这个目光。
So what we're talking about here is something that's called a twist. A twist is a point in a story where something a little unexpected happens and it heavily influences how the story develops. So in a murder mystery story, a twist could be when you are sure the killer is one person, but at the end it turns out to be somebody else. All the evidence seemed to point one way, and then you realize, oh wait, if I just thought about it a different way, I'd realize it's pointing a different way. So we don't want that kind of surprise twist in this story, really, because a twist doesn't have to be a big surprise or something crazy. It can just be something a little different, something a little unusual, which maybe sets your story apart and makes it more memorable. And it's going to be all about our main character's attitude here. The charity donation passage, the attitude of the person could change suddenly as we move towards the end. That could be a big twist. Or maybe if the character has organize this drive, and then for the first hour, just 2 people show up, but suddenly, at the end, loads of people show up and start donating clothes. That is a kind of twist. You're having something, and then a big change, a big dramatic moment that makes the story stand out a bit more.
是的，所以我们不需要很大的转折，很惊人的转折，但是我们可以增添一些小转折，让这个文章更精彩。那再来呢，除了论说文之外，叙述曾经发生过的事件，时态上呢，原则上应用是过去式系列，那就是过去式、过去完成式、过去未来式。那可以命名图中的主要人物，以方便叙述。角色符合的话呢，以第一人称来叙述就可以了。所以注意哦，除了论述文之外，叙述曾经发生过的事件，我们的时态用的是过去式系列。
Okay, so now let's move on to how we can brainstorm your ideas and start building up your story.
好，所以呢，接下来我们要做 brainstorm 的动作。我们可以透过 WH 来分析这个架构这篇文章的写作内容，可以先列出以下的重点，接着再加入其他的细节，你就可以清楚掌握文章的方向，不容易偏题。最后再把这些延伸变成你的 outline。所以刚刚讲的 WH 那就是5个 WH 开头的疑问词，还有一个就是 how。Right,
and the others are what, where, who, when, and why. And using these as a guide helps to make sure we're telling a complete story, because including all of those details will give the reader a clear and complete idea of what happens. And so we want all of that. We may not finally include everything, but you do need it to understand your story. So you could create a table similar to the one in the magazines we have, or you could use a mind map on a blank piece of paper. Have you ever created a mind map, Elsie?
OK, 所以用像杂志里面的表格，或是使用 mind map 心智图也是可以的。所以我有没有创作过心智图？有啊，在别的文章有。But what about this one? How do we make a mind map?
Well, you start off, you write picture writing, or whatever your title is, in the middle of a piece of paper, and maybe put a circle around it. And you write your question words around this middle word in an even kind of space circle, a bit like the legs of a spider coming out from the center. And you end up with this nice kind of visual spider web of words that you use to plan out. So you go, okay, so start in the middle, then go, okay, why in the top left, and then add the reason why. Where in the top right, add the place where, and so on around this circle. So we could do it also with a simple chart like the one in our magazine. We can take a look at that now, and we've got our WH questions. So who are the people in the picture?
在图片当中的人是谁呢？ They might be students, they might be classmates.
Yep, that's a pretty good start. And what event is being held?
什么事件正在发生，正在被举行？ A donation drive.
Right, and those are the pretty obvious ones we can answer. Now we can start adding our own details from our imagination. When did the event occur?
事件什么时候发生呢？Maybe last week, maybe last month.
Yep, so it doesn't matter. You just pick one and that's your time frame. So we've got 2 wheres here. Okay, the more interesting one is where did you get the event information? So this is before the picture. You'll have to think it up.
所以这要想象一下哦，你是怎么样得知这个事件、这个活动的资讯？ Maybe from posters on classroom doors.
Okay, and the more simple where did the event take place?
哪里发生的呢？ Maybe at school, maybe in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that fits with students and classmates. So now we've got a more important one. Why did you take part in the event?
为什么要参加这个活动？ To help those in need, 帮
Of
助
course.
需要帮助的人。
Yeah, that's why you give away things to people rather than just throwing them in the trash. And finally, and this leads to our conclusion, what did you learn from the experience?
最后这个问题呢，也可以一并带出结论。你从这次的经验当中学到什么？ Maybe you can learn only buy new clothes when you need them.
Right.
Don't buy a bunch.
Yeah, they've got too many clothes. Wow, I didn't realize I had so many. I ought to stop doing that. So we've got the 5 WH questions, some of them repeated for 7 Ws because we're thinking about some extra information. You could also add an extra who if you're writing third person. Instead of I, you'll need who is my main character. You know, a boy, a girl, what that person is is like, giving them some personality to help it lead into the story. And the extra what, as we said, is the one that adds the conclusion, gives you a lesson, and maybe that lesson is the twist that we mentioned before that kind of makes the story a little more interesting, makes it stand out a bit more.
Okay,
we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're going to go into our outline in a bit more detail. Hi everyone, welcome back. We're going to now move on from all these WH answers to making a more kind of structured outline. So this is a narrative. We're going to use these WH answers, who, what, where, how. We've got all of that and we're going to put it into a story. And we're going to start with a beginning, and remember, a beginning should be short. You don't want to spend 100 words introducing your character because that's most of the words. You want to really get into the story as quick as possible with a couple of sentences. It's up to you where you begin the introduction. You can have it at the event, it could be during, before, after, but let's look at the ones we've got in our example. Okay, so the introduction says, I used to buy new clothes all the time. So this is the who, the main character. It's going to be I, first person. And we're starting probably before the event and getting some background about the main character, but we're introducing the idea of new clothes. So we're already starting to move towards this main event, this donation drive.
没错，再来呢，我们就会看到 Topic Sentence 1，也就是主题句第一句。A school event changed everything for me. 这一次学校的活动改变了关于我的一切。那 A 我们看到的是 I saw posters on classroom doors about a charity event. 所以这个是事件发生的原因，他哪边看到这个资讯的？在教室的门上海报当中。再来 Students were encouraged to donate old clothes to people in need. 大家被鼓励要来捐赠旧的衣服来给需要帮助的人。
Okay, so here we've covered the when, this is and the what and the where, the school event, why are we doing it? It's a donation drive and it's to help people in need. People are giving away old clothes. We've got in all these important facts here. Now, the topic sentence, a school event changed everything, this contrasts with our introduction. We know this person used to buy new clothes, but we know this event changed everything, so we're kind of already hinting that the conclusion will be a change in what this person does, the way they think, the way they behave. Now, the topic sentence is about a school event, so all our supporting detail is going to be what's the event, where did it happen, when did it happen, and get all that basic information in. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic sentence, and this will be in the second paragraph. I realized I had too many clothes. So the person takes part in this event clearly, and they make a realization for this. And we've got some supporting details. I'd only worn, or some I had only worn once or twice. And as a result, I donated as much as I could. And this is plot and character development. The writer goes through an experience, they realize something about themselves, and they take action because they've kind of realized maybe they're not doing the right thing.
没错，所以从刚刚的引言开始呢，你知道他买很多的衣服，然后中间主题句第一句他告诉我们，他改变了。那再来主题句第二句就是他了解到的事情，也就是他觉得自己有太多的衣服。那再来就会是什么呢？再来就是 concluding sentence， 我们的结论句。Now I'll only ever buy new clothes when I need them。我现在的转变就是我需要的时候我再去买衣服，我已经不像以前一样了，看到喜欢的就买。
Right, this brings us right back round to the introduction. I used to buy new clothes all the time. Now I'll only ever buy new clothes when I need them. So it really kind of draws this into a perfect circle. The writer starts one way, finishes a very different way. They've learned a lesson through this experience, and this is a moral of the story, a lesson you learn from a story. Okay, so we've got all our details. We've used all our WH answers, who, where, what, why, what happened, why did this happen. And we've put that out into a set of kind of structure. Introduction and topic sentence is our first paragraph. Topic sentence 2 and conclusion is our second paragraph. So now let's read through our samples and really put this together into a final passage. Basic sample. I used to buy new clothes all the time. I always wanted to wear the latest fashions. However, last week a school event changed everything for me. I saw some posters on classroom doors that advertised a charity event. Students were encouraged to bring in old clothes to give to those in need, both in Taiwan and around the world. I had never realized how many people were in need of clothes. Another thing I realized when I searched my closet for things to donate was just how many clothes I had. What's worse, I'd bought so many things that I'd only worn a handful of times before fashions changed again. Seeing them all in a pile made me feel ashamed. I donated as many clothes as I could to the charity event. From now on, I'll only ever buy new clothes when I need them. Okay, so that's our first sample, and we see that it's written in first person. And you might want to use this approach if the picture relates to something that's really happened to you, because it's always easier to write about your own experiences than just to make up a fake story. Of course, if this has never happened to you, it's absolutely fine to make up a fake story to fill in the details.
没错，所以呢，我们今天这个 basic sample 它里面用的是第一人称。那当然，如果要写发生自己的事情，发生在自己身上的事情，我们要用的就是第一人称，你写出来也会比较有感觉。那如果没有发生过，没有关系，我们就编造一个也是可以的。
We're also going to look at a couple of words and phrases from that sample. We've got the word advertise, which of course means to promote something, to kind of show it on TV or in a magazine or online to get people interested so that they will buy it or use it. So we see advertisements, that's a noun everywhere, but the verb form is to advertise.Advertise 代表就是做广告，好，它是一个动词的形式。那名词是 advertisement， 或是我们说 ad 也是可以的。We also have the phrase those in need. A person or a group of people in need are some people or someone who would benefit from a particular type of help. Maybe they don't have much money, they live in a very poor country, maybe they're victims because earthquakes or other natural disasters or even wars have made them have to leave their homes and lose everything. So they need help from other people, maybe from other countries or organizations who can help them out. And we say they are people in need.
所以呢，在文章当中我们看到他们的老师呢鼓励他们要带旧的衣服过来 give to those in need， 那就是要捐赠给需要帮助的小朋友或是人。那再来 a handful, what does that mean?
Just a small number, a few, the amount you could hold in your hand, which wouldn't be much.
So a handful of times, 那就代表不是太多次，几次而已。
All right, let's now take a look at our second sample, which is a bit more difficult. Advanced sample. I pride myself on my personal style, and I also like to think that I'm a caring and considerate individual. When I heard that there had recently been a mudslide in the countryside near my cousin's home, I was struck with the perfect idea. I would organize a clothing donation drive for those who had been affected by the disaster.Not only could I be of service to people in need, but I could also lead the charge just by cleaning out my own overflowing closet. Within a few hours, I had found a good charity to cooperate with. Their staff generously educated me about the environmental benefits of donating clothing, which opened my eyes to just how much damage the fashion industry does to the environment. I immediately amended the flyers I had begun working on to include some of this information, as I was resolved to do as much good as I could with this drive. I printed the flyers, posted them everywhere, and waited for Saturday. I was filled with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. I had never organized something so big before. when I arrived at the donation site with empty boxes that weekend morning, I couldn't have imagined how much clothing people would bring to fill them. My classes and community amazed me by how they opened their hearts and closets to help those in need. I was proud of my own efforts, of course, but I was even prouder of the people around me. So let's take a look at a few of the useful grammar tips and sentence patterns we've got here. The first one is, I pride myself on my personal style, and I also like to think that I'm a caring and considerate individual.
这个片语呢 pride oneself on something 表示以点点点为自豪。那后面我们还看到一个名词是 individual， 也就是 person 个人的意思。Okay, what about another useful phrase we saw?
We've got, not only could I be of service to people in need, but I could also lead the charge just by, and so on. What we're looking here is the not only but also kind of inversion.
对的，这边呢使用了 not only but also 的倒装句型哦，所以要特别注意。那句子当中呢，我们的 charge 表示责任、任务的意思，所以 I could also lead the charge 就是我也可以来引导、领导这项任务。
Yeah, it's setting a good example, doing something that you expect other people to follow. So we've got another one here. I immediately amended the flyers I had begun working on. And we've also got a phrase here, I was resolved to do something.
好，那我们这边看到动词 amend 表示呢修改、改善的意思。还有就是 as I was resolved to, resolve 则有决心、决定的意思，意思就像是 determine 一样。
Okay, and our final one, I was filled with a mixture of nerves and anticipation.
名词 nerves 表示紧张不安、提心吊胆的心情，那固定用复数形来表示哦，也就是 worry 的意思。那再来呢 anticipation 可以说是 excitement 这个字的进阶用法，代表你这个非常期待的情绪。
Right, you're looking forward to something, but you might also be a bit nervous about how it's going to go. Like you're about to go on stage. You're excited, you're nervous, it could be great, it could go terribly, but there you go.
那就是期待又怕受伤害的感觉。
Okay, so that is our two samples. You can see how they're both first person, but they have a kind of different perspective. One person is just donating clothes. The other one is leading the charge and organizing the event. So kind of different themes, different moral lessons, different perspectives on this whole event. So two good samples there. But that's all we've got time for today. Thanks for listening, everyone. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie.
We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.